Hey family, so I thought we could talk a little bit about cartels. And since there has been a horrific cartel attack in Mexico where some people from Utah, which is, you know, part of where my home state was, and they were Mormons, I believe, they were caught up in a bad situation. The cartel killed some children and they torched the car. So everybody's talking about how AMLO in Mexico and how Trump wants to help out Mexico with their cartel problem. But here's the thing. Yes, indeed, a lot of Americans, we like to point out how Mexico has a cartel problem. But here's the thing, family. We also have a problem here. We have drug gangs as well. We have mafias here as well. The mafias is not as strong anymore as they used to be, which is good. Right? They had more power during 1920s, 1930s. And then you had the mob era, Al Capone and all those idiots. So I think it's a dual question we as United States citizens have to think about, is that we have to combat gang violence and we have to combat the cartels. But what does that link to? Which everyone's not really talking about, is our culture. Our culture loves drugs. Our culture propagandizes drugs and advertises substances that will lead you to the situations where there are lots of drugs. So the party lifestyle, right? Let's take this up a notch. So the clubs. In most clubs, I'd say like 97% in the United States are filled with drug use. Every bar has people using drugs, and most parties have people using drugs. And usually when people drink alcohol, they also will use drugs, right? I've spent a lot of time around addicts, and a lot of them will tell you that they will one chick described how she'd tweak, right? Tweaking meaning smoke crystal meth, and then to level her out, she'd have like a 40 ounce of Miller beer, right? And that she'd go high on her drugs, and then the alcohol would level her out. And so you had situations where alcohol is getting paired with drugs. And then you have rappers like, Juicy J, and then, Lil Wayne. You have a lot of different rappers who will say like, have Percocet, Molly, different substances that codeine, right? I got codeine in my cup, right? They promote a lot of drug use. And Jay-Z, if people pay attention to him, he got famous off of drugs, right? He was a drug dealer, and so was Biggie Smalls. So we, in America, we romanticize drug dealers. We love drug dealers. We like to say we don't, but our entire culture has that as its premise. And our culture produces a lot of suffering that we don't look at. And people, when they want to get relief from suffering, from trauma, instead of going to a therapist that they can't afford, or a psychologist, which they can't afford, they decide to self-medicate via drugs. This is a separate conversation from psychedelic mushrooms and cannabis and tobacco. Natural tobacco, like what the Indians would grow, not like what Marlboro gives you. So when I'm talking about drugs, I'm talking about crystal meth, crack, cocaine, all pills, like hardcore narcotics, right? And I think the way we can combat the drug cartels and the gang culture that promotes drug use is by us trying to figure out through our own ways and help others how you can relieve suffering. And a lot of people point to religion, right? Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, and Taoism, Confucianism, as ways to, even Hinduism I've seen, where people will try to not, when they have pain inside, they'll try to seek a higher power. Others will do art, others will go to certain meetings, right? There's certain groups that are like sober living people who they really want to try to help people come off of that. And if we really want to stop the cartels, if we really say we want that, we have to try to help other people get into recovery. We have to reach out. We have to slam the artists who are pushing it. And I was noticing how Conor McGregor the other day was tweeting about Burger King, right? You got a paid promotion, do a tweet for Burger King. He does a paid promotion of alcohol. So we got a famous guy who I formerly looked up to, but ever since Khabib smashed him, he's kind of opened my eyes up to realize how brainwashed we're kind of being, and how we're being taught to be rowdy, loud, drug use, alcohol use. We're not really being taught the good noble things of society, but it can happen, right? And he pushes alcohol. And I remember when Khabib was telling him, like, you think that's gonna make you strong? You think that's gonna make you strong? And it's kind of a wake-up call for American culture in general, right? Is that you can't say you want the cartel violence to stop and then listen to people who promote drug use, right? And another thing, people are not gonna like what I'm gonna say right now, but the porn industry also thrives off of drug use. Most of the women who are doing porn are on some substance and self-medicate to open up, to get less shy, to open up their inhibition so they can do that gnarly porn. And a lot of people think that, well, it's all these women are doing it sober. They want to do it. They chose that career. It's very noble, very dignified. I'm not going to get into a whole spiel about pornography yet, because I still am doing more research on it, and also doing meditations about what I really think about that field, because I've been around it so much. Not acting in it, but around the culture of pornography. So, if you notice some of these women, right? So you got us watching music artists who promote drugs. You got us watching porn where the people use drugs. We got rappers, male and female, like I said, using that. You got artists, actors and such, basketball players. You got all kinds of people promoting drug use. But then when we watch CNN, right? Oh, it's so horrible, the cartels are killing people, how do we fix it? And then you got some people who, well, let's just legalize all drugs, let's just make it one giant party of drugs. And you have other people like, no, let's go the Filipino route and let's just start massacring people who use drugs and sell drugs. I think we have to get to a even deeper level, which means we gotta start helping people understand how to cope with suffering. We have to teach them how to prevent trauma, how we can rebuild our communities and chase drug dealers out and change our media. Now, I think what I mean by that is I don't think alcohol should be advertised anymore on television. I don't think prescription drugs should be advertised anymore on television. Now, a lot of people who are for the free market will disagree with me. They'll say, no, freedom of speech, freedom of art. But I'd argue alcohol ads are not necessarily speech, and alcohol ads are not art, even though they're via a medium, via the television, and they take writers to do, and they can be creative. I think we are causing a problem when we simply want alcohol to be just pushed on our people. I think it's very toxic. And we know that we got more and more people drinking and driving. We know drinking and driving causes a lot of death. And we have to fix our culture. We can't cry about what happens in Mexico with the cartel violence, how innocent people are dying because of how the Americans consume a vast amount of drugs that make money for the cartels, right? You can't just focus on that, right? You can't be outraged that the cartel killed innocent people and then turn around and listen to artists, watch pornography, and consume medium outlets and stuff like that that promote drug use, that endorse it as something good. And you might argue, well, they're not necessarily telling you directly that it's good. No, they're telling you indirectly, subconsciously, via the clever marketing and psychological techniques that it's funner to be fucked up in your mind. But they never show you the fallout. I had an argument with one of my coworkers where we were talking about El Chapo, and he said, well, El Chapo helped a lot of poor people. And I said, hey man, so you're arguing that because El Chapo, the drug dealer, bought shoes for a kid, that somehow makes up for a woman who used his drugs and her baby died, right? The drug dealer's killing one baby, giving shoes to the other. He's making one woman a slave to drugs while putting a dress on his girlfriends. You see what I'm saying? I don't agree with the Robin Hood Escobar type of fantasized stuff about drug dealers. Oh, they're helping communities. They can help, right? That kind of noble mafia boss stuff has got to stop. That's a myth. That's a myth. Okay? Yeah, you can have a Tony Soprano dual character. That's fiction. Okay? And we can't allow that to go on in society if we want these deaths to stop. And then our culture will say, well, we don't want all these immigrants from Mexico. Well, and they say, oh, well, the drug war is fueling that. Okay. Why is it the only solution to legalize all drugs? Why not let's start a grassroots movement to get people off of drugs, right? Instead of us walking past these homeless people, maybe have a pamphlet ready that you could give them. You never know what we could do. There's so many creative ways. We need to find creative ways to get people to stop using drugs, to change our culture. And that starts with us, okay? And we can change our culture faster by helping our friends get sober, helping our family members get sober, and not listening to people who promote drug use, okay? I know it's hard, because some of the songs are really catchy, they got fantastic beats, but we have to start being aware. I mean, it's starting to get out of control how open drug use is becoming and how that is causing such horrible effects in society. And we are all ignoring how Americans play a huge role in drug use, and we play a gigantic role in our, causation, our causing aspects of the drug war in Mexico. And what is causing suffering? People not having a good paying job, people having sexual trauma, people not feeling loved, people not feeling like they have a community, people not feeling like they have a purpose in life, people feeling lost, despair, not having a way to repair their lives. These are things we can fix. These are things that we can do, right? These are things that we can do to help combat drug use. What are some of your solutions, family? What do you think we could do to not only stop out cartels, bring the gangs down, and also revitalize our culture? Because we can't just care about the fallout of the drug war when it's on CNN. Do you know what I mean? People are like, oh, I'm so sad, oh, Americans died, therefore we should care. We should care regardless of where those people were from. I don't care that just because they were American, I only care about them. I care about those innocent little Mexican kids who were dying too because of the war. And we have to stop romanticizing these drug dealers, right? And we have to making a livable wage a lot easier to do, right? People committing those crimes and selling those drugs is a faster way to make money than going to college, so we need to fix that. We need to have some involvement, I think, government-wise. A lot of people would disagree with that, and some people love that there's drug use in the world. I don't. I don't think we should have the extreme puritanical view. You have to allow certain amount of freedoms for people to make mistakes and learn, but there comes a point where you have to get involved, where you have to say no more. What do you think, family?